Last Saturday, Leslie McCormick of the Farwell Group was in, and she's author of the book Bank on Yourself, Why Every Woman Should Plan Financially to Be Single, Even If She's Not. And she warned us about the devil's biggest lie. This is your only chance to do something, someone will say to you. And we learned how to equip ourselves and answer that question, and it's now on the website marilyns.ca because that show is archived. But she basically advised us to take our time and decide, especially when we're investing. And I have Darren here this morning. So Darren, what are we talking about today?
Oh, good morning, Marilyn, and happy Valentine's weekend to you.
Thank you.
Well, as you said, Leslie last week was talking about some ways of helping to give yourself confidence that you're getting good advice from the professionals you're working with. The week before that, I had talked about some of the strategies, a few tips for getting good advice from professionals, like getting referrals, taking your time, as Leslie had said, taking your time with any of the advice that you're given, and use your team of professional partners. Have them talking to each other to ensure that the advice you're getting is right. Well, this week I'm going to continue along that path of passing along some tips for getting good advice from the professionals you work with. It's all about ensuring that you have better outcomes from yourself, giving yourself the confidence that the advice you're getting is going to work the best for you. Last week, or the last time I spoke, I was talking about the advice itself. This week, I'm going to talk about the professional that you're working with, the individual giving the advice. I mean, just like in sports or surgeons or with writers or musicians, there are some good ones, there are some okay ones, and there's probably a few in the bucket that aren't very good at all. The same is true for financial professionals, accountants, lawyers, financial advisors. How do you know that the one you're working with is a quality advisor? How do you know the financial advisor you're working with is a good one? Well, Wendy came to see me a few months ago. Wendy's friend had passed along a book that I had given her friend. And having looked at the book, Wendy thought that she would come and speak with me. And by the way, if anyone listening would like a copy of this book, it's about challenges and tips for widows, I'd be happy to pass it along. Wendy told me a story about how she had responded to an ad that she'd seen. And based on the ad about getting high returns on investments, she'd gone to meet someone in his office. Now, when she got to the office, her impression was, she told me about her impression. She said, well, it was kind of a small office. It was okay. The furniture seemed a little dated, but all in all, nice. And as I've heard before, she said the dress of the person she was speaking with was perhaps a little too casual, but nothing that caused any alarm. When she was speaking with the financial advisor, she wasn't sort of overwhelmed with the feeling of confidence. His demeanor didn't instill confidence. So her general impression was, while the ad was very professional, when she got there and experienced boots on the ground, it wasn't quite. So they discussed the guaranteed returns. They discussed the potential high returns she could get in the investment that he was talking about and tax efficiencies. But Wendy was smart. She knew, as Leslie was talking about last week, that you really want to take your time. Wendy did it the right way. She listened, she asked questions, she said thank you, and she took some material home. When she got home, she dug a little deeper and looked up this gentleman on LinkedIn and looked up the firm's webpage. And apparently, while he was mature, she thought he was probably in his 40s, he'd only been in the business for 2 years. He had no published articles. He did not list any industry or professional designations. Both Leslie and I are fellows of the Canadian Securities Institute. To be recognized as that, they do background checks. There's a minimum amount of training and education. There's a lot of testing and designations you have to get as part of that umbrella. It didn't appear that he had any of that. So for her, nothing felt right. So she moved on. Look, There are no ironclad guaranteed formulas as to what will be a good advisor. There's no checklist to be sure to know that that the person you're speaking to will be a good or bad advisor. As it turns out for Wendy, the product he was selling had a very high upfront commission and would have locked her in for a few years with fees. So it's important to be very careful about who you're dealing with. And while there's no foolproof way to separate the wheat from the chaff in terms of your financial advisor, there are 5 things that will help in considering whether you're speaking with a good qualified advisor. Number 1, the experience. How much experience does the person have? Number 2, do they have industry designations and qualifications, registrations? What kind of official designations do they have? Do they have published work in the newspaper, in the media, BNN, for example, magazines, Zoomer Radio? Do they have any sort of published work? What's the quality of the firm they work for? And quite importantly, fundamentally, do you feel comfortable with the person? Ask others what they think about the experience you had. If your spidey senses are tingling, you might want to trust that. So, none of these by themselves is a magic bullet. You could have someone who's very well qualified and educated, but really not be a good advisor. But looking at all of those things together, or considering each of them, may give you some idea if you're working with a good advisor. And if any listener would like to get more information on our ideas about how to find a good financial advisor, we're happy to send them a package of material that would give you some ideas about what to look for when you're shopping for a financial advisor.
And how much will that little booklet full of information cost you?
Well, one is an excerpt from a chapter from Leslie's book, and the other is an excerpt from a Globe and Mail article. And of course, we'll send that along for nothing. Just send us an email or give us a call and request it.
So I'll go back to the quote at the beginning of the show. There are only 2 ways to fail, quitting or not trying. So if you want the information before you take action about doing something financially, it's here for free. It'll take a little time, but that's it. All you have to do is call Darren. I know the number, Darren, 416-863-7501. That's 416-863-7501. You can protect your future. You can take charge of your finances. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points to at least give you a good gut feeling about what you're doing. And Darren and his team at the Farwell Group are happy to help you, whether it's a second opinion or just move forward from where you are. Are you going to the office today, Darren?
Yeah, it's still winter, so there's lots of good reason just to go and be in the office.
So 416-863-7501, immediate gratification, answers to your questions. Don't fail by quitting before you start. Take action, and then know that at least you've done something to move forward in your life. Thanks, Darren.
You're welcome.